Hey everybody, it's Michael Romanesco. I'm joined today by Brian Hendricks and Chuck Blakeman. Brian and Chuck met at the IDA event, and their booths were next to one another, and they hit it off, and we started to realize that there's a lot of synergy between IDS and Chuck. And Brian, if you could just share with everybody how that came to be.
Yeah, so we attended the Indiana Dental Association this last summer, and Chuck was the keynote speaker, and our booths were together. And we just started talking about business. I talked to him about our story where we started Independent Dental Solutions, and as a small startup company focused on helping independent private practices, stay independent. So Chuck and I started talking, and there was a lot of synergies. And Chuck actually reminds me of somebody that I worked with back in my medical days. So we kind of had this kindred spirit type of discussion about just coaching and mentoring and, what does business look like? And I shared with him some of the experiences that we had as a small business. So he shared with me, about, the book that we'll talk about today, and gave me a copy of the book and started reading through. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of really cool things in here. Not only, from just in business in general, but applies to our business, but also applies, to the dentist. So we started talking and say, hey, why don't you come on and, do a video with Michael and I, and talk to our listeners about what they can do and take some tidbits from the book and help them become better business owners. So
the way it actually happened is Brian came back from the IDA event and said, I met this guy who was the keynote speaker. We've got to get him on and talk to him and let our members know what he's about, and that's really how it happened.
That's your story.
Thanks for joining us, Chuck.
Yeah,
you bet. Glad to be with you. Yeah,
I'm glad. You want to kind of walk us through? That'd be great.
Yeah, I'm glad to be with you. It's kind of interesting. That book is actually how we ended up in dentistry. It was the #1 rated business book of 2010, and in 2012 or 2011, someone was in the airport reading my book, and they looked up and they'd not only missed their plane, it'd been gone for an hour. So they took a picture of my book in the empty concourse and said, it's this book's fault. And they were very well known in dentistry. So we ended up getting invited to speak at a few things. We found out, hey, we love dentistry. We love, I think I'm opposites attract, and I'm ADHD, dyslexic, went to music school, graduated at the bottom of my high school class. I mean, I'm just not a dentist in any way, shape, or form. But I found out that opposites attract. I love dentists and dentistry. We want to change the way dentistry is done on the business side. And so it just became one of those things where we hooked up on a long-term basis, and that's where we're focused now, is just in dentistry. In fact, I'm rewriting that book, Making Money is Killing Your Business, as Making Money is Killing Your Practice.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about the title. It's a unique title.
It is a unique title.
Yeah, I have snarky titles, but they're not just marketing. I really believe them. Making Money is Killing Your Business. That title came from the idea that a lot of people go into business thinking that I got to do something to make money. What am I going to do to make money? And the reality of it is, people who go into business to make money rarely make very, very much of it. They make very little. The people who go into business with a bigger reason than making money are the ones who tend to make more money. So go into business to solve a problem, to fill a gap, to live out a passion, but don't try and make money, because that's just a dead end. Money is just a resource, and it's really just a scorecard of how well you're living out your passion. So I've seen this with some dentists who got into the trap of, hey, I got too big of a mortgage, I got too many helicopters, whatever it is, and so they've reverted to trying to make money, and it doesn't come across well. We call it commission breath. It's, everybody smells it. They know that you're in business to try and make money, and it just kind of permeates the whole practice. So that's the premise of the book. I learned that myself. I went into business a few times to try and make money. It didn't work out well. And then I found some things I loved, and I made a lot more money.
Yeah, I think to that point, I mean, just from our experience, when we started Independent Dental Solutions, there was really a passion because we saw a need in the market, and we're all passionate about it. So you have, Dr. Michael, you have Dr. Rick, you have Jordan and myself. And Jordan and I are not dentists, but we have a passion. We like to help people, right? You and Dr. Rick talk about how you want to help save the profession that you love. So our whole motto is all about helping save independent private practice, not about, the money side. So we spent a lot of personal time. Again, a lot of stuff really resonated in the book about, kind of follow your passion and, kind of get off the treadmill. Like I would love you to talk about that, that concept. But, we're spending a lot of time going out and promoting what we're doing. And and a lot of people say, a lot of the dentists will say, I like the savings that you're doing, but a lot of people will say, I really like that you're helping save independent
the mission
and the movement.
Right.
So it's a passion. So we're building our own business on a passion, and a movement. Right.
Well, and I think that's one of the things we found to be simpatico on when we were at the IDA is that my passion is for small business and particularly small dentistry. Something like 3 or 4% of all dentistry is multiple location, and within 3 or 4 years, it's going to be 35 to 40%. So there's a real groundswell of going in that direction, and you can still be independent and have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 locations. We're working with dentists like that as well, but dentistry does not have to go the way of the rest of medicine. It is an entirely different beast. It's actually a retail profession. There are very few things in dentistry that are actually mandatory, like pulling a tooth and a few others. The rest of it is optional, and it's a retail business. And I've got a lot of dentists who have confirmed that with me. It is not the way, it does not have to go the way that the rest of healthcare has gone, and it probably will not be served to do that.
Yeah, we think, my background, as we spoke, is all on the healthcare side. We just met with, 40 some dentists a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about, don't let, what happened to medicine happen to, mass consolidation. Everybody wants to land grab big hospitals, big patient care. And that's what they thought the value was. We're going to reduce costs, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And healthcare is a disaster. Yeah. So we're basically saying, how do you learn from that so dentistry doesn't follow in those footsteps?
Yeah, we want to bend that curve.
We want to bend that curve. And there's, we're just a little part of how we bend that curve, but that's how we're bringing other people like yourself, and just, promoting, hey, dentists need to think a little differently. The other thing we always hear is dentists will say, well, I went to school to be a dentist. I'm passionate about dentistry. I didn't get a lot of schooling or education, or I have a lot of experience leading a team, or, running a business, or looking at a P&L, or looking at my profit and loss statements, all these other things, marketing. How do you appeal to different generations of staff and for patients? So that's when you start to see people saying, well, I throw my hands up and maybe I want to go to a DSO, or I want to sell to corporate. And it doesn't need to be that way. No. Just kind of taking some insight and finding your right ecosystem helps.
Yeah, this is why we're excited about being in dentistry, because we believe we can bring that side of dentistry, the business side of dentistry, we can shore that up in a way that nobody needs to go corporate if they don't want to. It's really not that difficult of a thing to do. And it's not something people are taught in dental school. You got 200 hours of dental or dental studies, and I think 3 of it is optional. How to code insurance. I mean, there's nothing there in business. The reality of it is, I did 12 businesses in 8 industries on 4 continents, and I've learned through that and working with many other business owners, at least 70% of business is generic. Everybody needs to do advertising, marketing, sales, public relations, people development, team development, training, accounting. There's so much of dentistry that is not clinical. The overwhelming majority of it is not clinical. And that's why you talk to one dentist, he's frustrated about the guy down the street who has a line out his door, and he knows he's not as good a clinician. But that guy has figured out the business side. And it's not like you have to leave the clinical side. If you want to be clinical, then great. But let's get somebody else who can help you do this in your practice. We need to learn the clinical side of dentistry, or the business side of dentistry. And that's what's going to get you off the treadmill.
Yeah, you're right. And, as you said, the clinical side, that should be a given, and we're constantly improving our clinical abilities and constantly working on it. But that should be a given, that you can safely practice dentistry.
Yeah.
I completely agree that the business side, when I was in dental school, I feel like we had maybe 2 or 3 hours of, hey, here's how you run a business. And that was it.
Yeah.
And then you walk out and there's no question as to why so many of my classmates ended up going into DSOs or corporate dental. Yeah. They weren't all fortunate enough to have a family member who can show them the ropes or a trusted individual. Not everyone has a trusted individual even. Yeah. And my dental school, like many other dental schools, they have mentor programs to try to help guide these individuals and say, this is where you can go. This is what you can do. But the corporate and DSOs, they're also getting into the mentor programs and saying, right, here too. So, getting people to realize what all the options are. I mean, that education is crucial. It's crucial. And having a support system and having people like yourself who can help direct them or show them, like, this is not only is this possible, it should be a must.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, they don't have to be the business guy. A lot of them are artists. They're genius artists, and they're professionals in the clinical side, and they just don't have any interest in the business side. They still don't have to go to corporate dentistry. In fact, they will find that if they go to corporate dentistry, a lot of times they will have less opportunity to express themselves.
Absolutely.
But it's not that they have to do this, but somebody has to, and we can help them either find those people internally or get them the right people, and then teach them how to actually build a business around dentistry that supports that. And I know I've had some dentists share with me, I don't want to build a business. I just want to do dentistry. And it feels kind of creepy to me to talk about the money. But when I talk to them about, do you want to make an impact? Oh, yeah, I want to make an impact. Well, let's make the biggest impact you can. Let's get a line out your door. And that's going to require somebody figuring out the business side of this. So this isn't, again, about making money. This is about, do you want to make the biggest impact you can? Then let's get the right people coming to your office, and let's get the line out the door so that you can be the best clinician and make the biggest impact you want. I think I'll give you a prototypical problem case that I think a lot of people will relate to, especially people coming out of dental school. They've heard this horror story. I'll call him Dr. Green. Dr. Green is in the Chicago area, and I met Dr. Green about a year and a half ago. And Dr. Green was in his early 60s. He had not saved enough for retirement, making $300,000 to $350,000 a year in dentistry. And he had never taken, in the 30 plus years he'd been practicing dentistry, he had never taken a vacation without shutting down his office. And it only took 1 week a year. So this is the man's life. And they're thinking, well, I think I'm just going to go join a DSO. I get a guaranteed couple weeks of vacation, and this is a nightmare. Well, it doesn't have to be that way, and it didn't have to be that way for Dr. Green. 18 months later, he's working 2 days a week. He's making over $400,000 a year. And he, in April, he took his first vacation without shutting his office down. He made more money that week than any of the 52 weeks prior that he was actually in the office. So this is a mindset and then a few tools. And there are things I've learned through the School of Hard Knocks. That book you have there, that's not a book I wrote, that's a life I lived. And so these are just things I learned by doing them badly. So those are the things that we can give people hope in. And he realized, I don't ever have to sell this. He was on the verge of selling and just kind of, bumping along and making $125,000 in retirement. He's making over $400,000. He's basically retired. He's going to go down to 1 day a week in the next 6 months. And he said, why would I ever sell this? This is now an asset, both in money and in time. And most practices are monetary assets and time liabilities.
That's a great example. And talk to us about those, maybe some of the dentists that think like, I have everything, where it needs to be, or I'm doing everything right. I mean, what is the, what are some lessons learned when you've talked to some of the dentists, like you said earlier, like, this is what I thought it was going to be. What are some of those aha moments that the dentist has that's saying, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago or 5 years ago?
Yeah. One of the biggest aha moments is one that I had in my 6th business when I was frustrated. After 5 businesses, every time I built a business, the more money it made, the faster my treadmill went. And every dentist will find the same thing. You got all these practice management companies out there saying, we can get you 30% more revenue this year. What they don't tell you is you will be running 30% faster than you used to, and you'll be 30% more miserable. Right. So this was a revelation to me when I said to myself, I put my foot down and said, I don't know how this is going to happen, but in my sixth business, this business is going to produce both time and money. Didn't know how I was going to do it. And that became the journey that became that book. And this is the big aha for a lot of dentists. You mean I can actually make more money in less time? How do you do that? Because the only way that we're taught in dental school to make more money is in more time, spend more time chair side. So that's the first step is, wow, I can actually make more money in less time. I can get off this treadmill, and this thing can actually work for me instead of me working for the business. How many dentists have you ever heard say, this place is running me? I mean, do you run the business or the practice, or does it run you? You feel like, oh no, it's Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, I'm dreading going into work because this thing runs me. It's nonsense. We can get you free from that. You can get yourself free from that.
Yeah. So what would be, like, if you go through the, again, if you go through the book here, what would be some of the, some of the pointers that you could kind of say, hey, this is why you want to, take some time to learn about this. What are some, give our members some tidbits, some gold nuggets, some pearls, pearls.
These are things, and again, these are all things. That book is extremely practical. People who read that book come out of it with very practical things to do. So first, we set up the problem. The problem is that we're short-term thinkers. We're still hunting the next mastodon. This one's rotting. Where do I find the next one? And so we're trying to pay next month's mortgage, and that's what a dentist is doing: pay next month's lease and his mortgage. And you get into this short-term mindset we call the tyranny of the urgent. Everything is about the short term. And then 10 years, 15, 20 years later, like Dr. Green, we wake up one day and wonder why we are still in the same place that we were 20 years ago. It's because we did not ask ourselves, what do we want out of this? So number one, the first thing somebody has to do is come up with their big why. We've come up with 4 building blocks. We didn't invent these in an ivory tower. These are things I found over a couple decades working with practice leaders and business owners. Building block number 1 is, why am I doing this? And it's not to make money. And what do I want out of it in the long term? I didn't invent this stuff, by the way. There's a guy named Stephen Covey who talked about starting with the end in mind. One of the 7 habits. Start with the end in mind. What do you want out of this? If you talk to 100 dentists, 90 plus of them will not have a good answer to that other than, well, I want a good retirement and a nice house and some money in the bank. How much money? What does retirement look like? I mean, they have no specifics behind that. And you get what you intend, not what you hope for. These guys are hoping something good will happen. They're going to end up like Dr. Green. So that's number 1, is you have got to get an utterly clear picture of what you want out of this. Because if you don't do that, well, as my Irish friend who runs our businesses over there says, if you don't have a vision for your own life, you're going to become part of somebody else's vision for theirs. So get a very clear understanding of what you want out of this, and then use your practice. Look at the back of the book. Show the back of the book for people. Use your practice. Use your business to build your ideal lifestyle. How many of us feel used by our practice? Let's flip that, and let's figure out how do we use it. The first thing is to figure out what your big why is. And then there's other building blocks like a strategic plan. And all the things that are important are not urgent. This is the number 1 problem in business and in life. Give me one thing that's important and I'll guarantee it's not urgent, like a will. I'm still breathing. It's not urgent. Planning, figuring out what kind of technology is coming down the road. I'm too busy using what's here to figure that out later. What kind of patients do I actually want? I'm too busy working with today's patients to figure that out. All the important stuff is things that are not urgent, and yet the important things will solve the urgent things. Those are the things that are going to get you off the treadmill. So get that big why. Secondly, get a strategic plan, not a business plan. That's voodoo and culture, or voodoo and fortune telling. That's a whole different thing. But we put together a simple little 2-page strategic plan that I've used for decades to run my own business. And we teach people to use this simple little 2-page tool. And then freedom mapping. Freedom mapping is getting the stuff out of your head, through your heart, out your hands, onto a piece of paper so somebody else can do the genius things that you're doing, so that when you are not there like Dr. Green, this thing will actually flourish. Practical, tactical things. I'll give you one today out of the book that's really easy, and this is life-changing. It was for me. We call it the practice owner's game. The practice owner game, the objective is, how do I make more money in less time? And I challenge people, a lot of people, when I ask a practice owner, do you own a business or a practice? And they'll say, sure. And I'll say, no, I know you well enough. You don't own a business. The business owns you. You are an income producer. We have to get you to switch from income producer to business owner. And the practice owner's game is how you're going to do that. So the income producer thinks, if I'm not here, this thing's going to start to slow down and fall apart without me. That's an income producer's mindset. A business owner says, how do I get this thing to make money when I'm not here? So the business owner's game is, how do I make more money in less time? Two simple questions, guys. And by the way, none of this is going to be really revelationary. It's pretty big dust stuff. The simple things are always profound, and the profound things are always simple. So here we go. Question number one: with whatever a dentist is doing all day long, if they made a list, they just kept a pen and a paper beside their chair and drag it with them for a whole week, and ask themselves, write down what you're doing, and then ask yourself, is this the highest and best use of my time, what I'm doing right now? And then put a little yes or no, Y or N beside each one of those. I guarantee you, if they actually do this for a week, 75 or 80% of the things that they write down will be no. This is not the highest and best use of my time. But we're doing it for all kinds of crazy reasons. I haven't had time to give it to somebody else. I suffer from a bad case of the nobodies. Nobody's as good, nobody's as experienced, nobody's as knowledgeable, nobody's as committed, nobody's as invested, and all those other nobodies. We got to get that stuff off our plate. So question number two is how we get it off the plate. And this is the one that can change your life. If you actually do this as a regular part of your routine as a practice owner, question number one, is this the highest and best use of my time? If not, then question number two, how do I do this for the last time? Be utterly committed to that really profound, simple question, and you will find an answer. Make a process out of it, buy a piece of software, train somebody else to do it. There's 10 or 15 answers to the question, how do I do this for the last time? And you just start making a list, and then you pick away at one of them at a time. Here's one that I'm going to get this one. I'm going to chase this thing until I get to the end of that question. And then I'm going to chase the next one. And this is how Dr. Green got to where he was coming in 2 days a week, because he was classic. He was doing everything. Everybody waited on him to make decisions, all of that stuff. And we just had to pick away at one thing at a time and help him get through it. And the head trash that comes with that. So you can see the practical, tactical nature of this book and our approach to things and how we work as business advisors with practice owners. This is going to be stuff that's on the ground.
No, I think that was a really good, overview and kind of, of the book and of that thinking. But I to your point earlier, I was kind of, as I was reading your book and just reflecting on my own coaching, I had a really good coach of mine. His name is Sai Hifano. He's out of Detroit. And he was an executive coach for me for many years when I was in medical. And he always said, Brian, only do what you can do. So if you're sitting there, you're doing stuff that other people can do, that's not a good use of your time, right? So I think to your point, these are all practical things, but I think we're just in a society of like production or busy work. So people are like, if I don't put in 12 hours a day, then that means I'm not successful or I'm not producing. But why couldn't you work, a more manageable schedule and still have that? I do agree with you, because we've done, I've done some of that in my past from a leadership role, looking at here are all the things
we all have.
Like I can't, this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I also think, like you said earlier in the book, that you just got to write this stuff down.
Yeah.
What is your plan? What is your strategy? And put that in front of you. Or like you said, what is your big why?
Yeah.
Like for Independent Dental Solutions, our why is to help independent private practice, maintain their independence. That's our why. That's why we do what we do. And that's an easy, clear message that everybody
guys, I'm assuming
we're passionate.
Yeah, I'm assuming because of your passion, here's how you measure, and here's how I would have a dentist measure whether they have a big why or not. Because they begin to filter all the other questions in their practice through that big why. From buying a copier to deciding whether they're going to do sleep apnea or not. Does this help us fulfill our mission? And if you find yourselves constantly asking yourself that question, then that's really, you've got a big why that you're hanging on to there. So that's a huge piece of this to start with. And then having that simple plan, we want them to find one thing. We call it one big rock to crush this year. Coming through 12 businesses, I've learned that if I have 3 major goals, I'm likely to hit none of them. And I used to think, well, let's try 2. And now I'm really kind of getting animate about, let's just have one thing. What is the one thing, if you didn't accomplish anything else this year, if there was only one that you could say this got done, what is it? And then you chase that rapidly. And that's, again, part of the outside eyes that we provide to help coach them, because they're going to get all distracted on all these other things. And we're going to keep pulling them back to that one thing that's actually going to make a difference so that they are in a different place next year.
All really good things. And I think the one thing, Chuck, about dentistry is I'm learning the market with, with Michael and the rest of our team, and all the dentists we work with, is if you're an independent dentist, I would say the majority of independent dentists want to be coached and they want to learn.
Yes.
Because they want to maintain independence and they're open to that. They're not saying, well, I have all the answers. Now, some may say the processes I have or the profitability I have is good, right? But I haven't really met a dentist that says, give us the Heisman or anybody else the Heisman and be like, no, we don't want to do this, right? So it's like, I think, and that's why we wanted to have you come on today and basically kind of promote, because our whole focus is to help, our members be more, more empowered, more educated about what's out there. And like you said earlier, you got to find the right ecosystem. You got to find the right people, because, we work with a lot of new dentists that are graduated and they want to build a practice, or they, but they go the DSO route for a little bit to get experience. And they're saying, I don't even know who to call if I want to do X, Y, and Z, and I don't have any business background. So what we're really trying to do is build that ecosystem. And we can even relate for IDS, our members. When we started, some of the things that we learned as we went along, and things that we, made pivots on. And, we want to make sure we have the right, ecosystem, if you will, or we call them independent, dental collaborators, to make sure that they have the same kind of passion around, their why and the culture. Right. But, we don't want to be everything to everybody. We want to be, something to our members. And that's
I love what Seth Godin,
proud of.
I love Seth Godin's question. Are you a wandering generality, or no, I guess this is Zig Ziglar. Are you a wandering generality or a meaningful specific? I just love that. We need to be, people need to be able to identify. So that's what you do for us.
Exactly. So thank you for the time today. If our members wanted to learn more about you, and we can certainly put something on the, on the bottom. Yeah. But what is a good way, to learn about, to find out about where they can get the books or the other books that you've written, or to learn about the services that you provide? Tell us a little bit about that, and then we can wrap up.
Sounds good. Well, it's pretty simple. They can get the books on Amazon. We also have websites by the title of my books. But ChuckBlakeman.com is a very simple place for them to start. Just go to ChuckBlakeman.com, or they can email me at Chuck@Crankset Group, CRANKSET, cranksetgroup.com. But ChuckBlakeman.com is a great place for them to see with all the things that we can do to help dentists.
All right, wonderful. Great. And we can put that on the bottom, probably, right?
We'll put it right
on
here.
the bottom, right on the bottom of there.
I try to reach over to Chuck's screen, but it stopped.
It stopped, yeah.
We'll put it right there.
Yeah. Hey, so, Chuck,
thank you so much, Chuck.
Yeah, this was great. It was fun. I think I'm sure our the IDS members are going to take a lot from this. And as you and I spoke, let's continue our dialogue, because we want to bring in your thinking and your experience and your expertise. And how do we continue to update and let our members know what's going on and how they can, help become a better business
protect private practice.
And protect private practice.
Yeah, well, that's our passion. Let's see how we can push them forward. Yeah, let's see how we can push those guys forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chuck.
Thank you so much,
Appreciate it.